will be recording this meeting just so we can have that available for other individuals that
fire out. And then there is a low risk that if what happens if there's a lot of work being done at the landfill and a fire does break out above ground and there's toxic air quality, what it is that the plan is. And so we want to make sure as neighbors that you know what our plan is and how we're going to alert you and what the plan is. So we've been working closely with the Office of Emergency Management, with the Department of Ecology, with the Clean Air Authority, with District 12 Fire Department, with the City of Yakima Fire Department, the Hazmat Response Team, and with DTG to come up with this plan. And so we want to make sure that you're aware of it because, and also I want to let you know too, that if you have any questions, please feel free to ask any questions that you have. We want to, if we have any gaps in our plan, we want to make sure that we hear from you and so that we can add that in the plan and make any changes. So we want to make sure that's a two-way communication so that we're covering any gaps that there might be. And so it's very valuable and we very much appreciate that you're here. And so at that point, I'll turn it over to Andy Wilson, who's our local emergency response coordinator.
All right. Again, thank you for showing up. My name is Andy Wilson. I'm the local emergency response coordinator. So like we said, this is a public meeting for the DTG subsurface landfill fire. We're here with emergency management, Department of Ecology, present this information. Yeah. Next slide, please.
Sorry. Give me 1 second, sorry.
All right, good to go. All right, so a quick overview. Many of you are probably familiar with the location of DTG landfill. This is the overall view of it. Some of you rode here on the east side. That's where you'd access 41 Rock Top Road. The main office, when you're driving down Summit View, will be there right off of Summit View. But the actual cell that we're looking at is approximately half a mile back down the drive from the office. Next slide, please. So this is a close-up of the cell that we're talking about. This is cell 1 or phase 1. Right here in red, that's the general location of where we've located the subsurface landfill fire. So just wanted to give you a brief view of where we're talking about so that you understand. So this is DTG property. To the north is private citizen property. Next slide, please. All right, so a little background. DTG, which is a limited purpose landfill, so it doesn't take municipal solid waste. It was purchased from Anderson Rock LPL, was permitted in 2019 by the Health District. Cell 1, the cell that we're focused on, or phase 1, was closed in 2022, so it is no longer part of the active working area. All the waste that's there has been covered with dirt, and they're no longer placing waste in that area. Air sampling was conducted. through ecology, with that air sampling test, it was turned into a MOTCA site, a Model Toxics Control Act site. So through that, they have to go through a process of investigation, cleanup, and remediation. So that was designated by ecology in 2022. We had multiple follow-up inspections based on those inspections, observations that us in ecology saw, and with air monitors out there, we saw evidence that there could be a subsurface landfill fire. So we prompted an investigation into it that we had DTG start. Go next.
And sorry, I'm gonna pause because our Facebook audience isn't able to see it. So I'm gonna start this again. I apologize.
No problem. Like we said before, there could be a lot more questions. We have a lot of information to cover, not a whole lot of time. So if you have additional questions afterwards, feel free to ask. Good to go, Stephanie?
Yes, I think so.
All right.
Okay.
So with that investigation, part of it was installing bar hole punches. So essentially pipes into the waste, into the landfill mass. So you can take temperature and air samples. With those air sampling and the temperature samples that we took, it was confirmed that there was a subsurface landfill fire. After that, DTG hired Landfill Fire Control as their landfill fire consultant. Regulatory agencies, we all came together at that point. We started working together to address the subsurface fire and the public health concerns. So we worked with us at the Health District, Department of Ecology, Office of Emergency Management, Clean Air Authority, and Yakima County Planning. Along with the Environmental Protection Agency, we're all together, large effort to get all this stuff rolling. Also, the Yakima Health District, we initiate our incident command system. So internally at the Health District now, we have an incident command where we have regular meetings to discuss objectives and next steps. Next slide, please. For an idea of the bar hole punch locations, which I referenced to, here's a map. So it started off with 10. We went to 25. Now I think we're at 27, 28 of them. But this is a plan that can be expanded or contracted. The goal of this is to try to delineate where the extent of the fire is, where we have our trouble areas, where the fire is growing. Also, we can look at the samples that we're taking to see trend, see if it's getting worse or if it's getting better. So this helps now to see if it's getting worse in certain areas. And as we go through remediation, we'll be able to see if the progress that we have made is doing the correct effect.
And could you orientate us on that picture? What are we looking at, south or?
So from here, we would be looking east.
East.
So south would be to the right-hand side of the screen, north to the left-hand side of the screen.
And one part is
So generally that first picture I shown with the red circle over the top of cell 1, that would be this general area here. So cell 1, large cell, it would be on the west side of the cell. So from here, we are looking east at cell 1. Excellent. All right, so next steps, Stephen Haychurch will talk about.
Hello, everyone. I know a few of your faces, so thank you for coming, and it's great to see you again. Fortunately, I wish it was on better terms, but this is what we're trying to deal with, and it's been a very tough situation. I'm glad you guys are here to be able to try and work through this together. We are working for you, so your input is very valuable for us. So the overview of the overview of the soil cover grading plan is to use soil suppression of the fire to basically diminish any oxygen reaching it and then fueling it to get bigger, to spread, or causing a superficial or fire coming to the surface. So it's been reviewed by DTG's landfill fire consultant. We've retained a landfill fire consultant, and they've all agreed that the best mode of addressing this fire right now is to do some type of soil suppression. If we were to do some kind of excavation operation, it would prove a lot of risk for the neighbors, you all. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the most effective, but also the least invasive method to address the fire and hopefully get it extinguished. And so the overall view is so in the previous slide, you saw kind of where we've been monitoring. And so we've kind of designated that as the fire zone, the active fire zone. And so the soil cover will be 3 inches of soil, 3 feet of soil going over that zone and then extending out laterally 100 feet to kind of cover any bases that we can if the fire is reaching out past what we're monitoring.
100 feet laterally from the, so that you have enough of a setback that they can do that?
This is what we know. So just
Okay.
We'll get into questions. So that's kind of the main gist of it, and they will be starting from the bottom of the slope. I'm sure if you've seen it out there, there are some pretty steep slopes out in that area. So it'd be quite dangerous to start from the middle, from the top, and try and push soil down, and you wouldn't really get the type of compaction that we need to get it to suppress the fire. So they'll be starting from the toe of the slope up, and again they'll have also a geotechnical engineer on site that will be reviewing, kind of leading the operation. They'll be approving. They have direction to be able to stop work if there's any issues. Quite frankly, anyone on the site has the ability to do that because the safety is the first and foremost priority. So, thank you.
All right, so the evacuation plan, big priority, main point of focus for this meeting tonight. We've worked with DTG, with EPA, Department of Ecology, Emergency Management to develop a evacuation plan in case something happens. I want to reiterate right now, we're not seeing anything hazardous. There's no concerns for any of the public outside of the DTG site. However, if there was something to happen, we want to make sure we have a plan in place so that you all know how you're going to get alerted, where you can go, and all those different information. So an emergency notification. So if we have an event that we are going to have a evacuation recommendation, those notifications are primarily going to go out through Alert Yakima. So you'll hear it from me, you'll probably hear it from Tony again. We strongly encourage everybody here, especially everybody online, to sign up for Alert Yakima, not just for this specific incident, but for any emergency situations in Yakima. And I'll let Tony talk much more about that because he is an expert on that. So in the evacuation plan, which we're going to have up on our website so you can see the whole plan, there's a large section for the workers on site. Workers on site are regulated by different agencies. They're regulated differently than the public. So large section is for workers on site. There's a section for the public and how that's going to go through. So in that section, it talks about sending off recommendations to, or notifying the health district about what's going on, and then we would make the recommendations. If we send out an evacuation recommendation, with the plan, Home 2 Suites is the primary place if you do not have another place that you can go to. The Home 2 Suites, you need to go there and you need to register so that DTG can pay for your accommodations. They've also said that they will pay individual meal rate at $69 a day, which is the government rate for Yakima County right now. So again, if you get alert notifications, you do not have another place that you can go outside of the affected area, which I'll talk about the affected areas really in just a minute. Home 2 Suites would be the primary place that you would go. DTG has also said that at Home 2 Suites, if they get filled up, another equivalent hotel will be paid for. So we want to make sure that if you leave, you do get registered with Home 2 Suites so that DTG can track and reimburse you the appropriate amount. Next slide, please. The health district worked together with other agencies. So we've delineated, call them concentric rings for evacuation. This was based off of our chemicals of concern, plume modeling, what we expect could happen, you know, all the what ifs. So essentially we have DTG here in the center. Cell 1 that we're focused on is right in the direct center of that landfill, or right in the direct center of those rings. The first ring will go out to 3/4 of a mile. The second ring is out to 1 mile, and the last ring is out to 1.5 miles. Based on our information, we think that we have encompassed everybody that could be affected if this thing really got going. Essentially what we would do is we would make evacuation calls for each concentric ring, depending on the gases that we see, air monitoring. So, for example, if we had at the property line, leaving the property line, levels of hazardous chemicals that we saw that were in evacuation action levels, we would do an evacuation order for the first ring, so out to 3/4 of a mile. From here, it's a little bit hard to see, but essentially it would go out to the vet clinic there on Summit View Road, if you're familiar with that. Additional air sampling would be taken, and then we would extend those rings out as far as needed. Those first rings, those first evacuation calls are not going to be based off of wind direction. So even if the wind, which generally comes from the west and goes to the east, is still going in that general direction, everybody within that ring is going to get an evacuation notice. After that, we'll let Sam talk to you. We'll do, it'll be more fine-tuned on air quality for that. So again, within these rings, we've identified all the residents. We've sent out letters to all the mailing addresses and residents in those areas. I'd encourage you, if you live within inside of one of those rings, or you think you might, contact us. If you have not got a letter, and we can figure out if you're within inside those rings or how best to get a hold of you. Next slide, please. So public health and ambient air. So with this situation, it is a large situation on the landfill, but as far as the public is concerned, ambient air quality is our biggest concern. We have chemicals of concern that we've identified through laboratory testing of what's in the landfill. So essentially we're saying whatever is in the landfill that could cause harm to people, if it escapes, what do we need to be aware of? At this point, like I said before, no hazardous levels of chemicals have been detected in ambient air. We don't have any health risk on site or off site at this time. There's daily monitoring going on. So every day they go around, they take measurements with the meter. Yes, ma'am.
You said no hazardous levels have been found. Have you been testing for methane? And if you've been testing for methane, what are the percentages of methane in the air?
We have not found any percentages of methane in ambient air right now. Yeah, so daily monitoring is going on. So once a day they go out there and they do monitoring of the ambient air. We have pre-designated, and forgive me, I can't remember. I think it's 7 or 8. Do you remember, Stephen?
I think it's 8.
Eight designated areas that we went through and we established with DTG. So we said, if you take air samples, this is where you're going to take them each time, so that we know where the samples are. There's samples right on top of the subsurface landfill fire area, and samples on the property boundaries to the north, which is the closest to homes. So we take monitor samples there. Once they start the remediation work, there will be continuous air monitoring, because it is a higher risk that something might happen. We don't want those daily spot checks. So we're going to do continuous monitoring. And as of now, they turn the sheets every day to us. Yeah. So they take samples, they write them down every day. They do that, and then they send those reports to Stephen, and we look them over. And so far, it's been zeros in ambient air. When we were out there with our meters, we weren't getting anything either. So we've defined action levels for these chemicals of concern. These levels were based on EPA recommendations. So spent a lot of time talking with EPA and their air quality program. They use a community acute exposure guidelines. So these are not the same as OSHA guidelines. These are meant for a full population, not just worker exposure. The Northwest Area Contingency Plan, which is a tri-state plan developed around hazmat releases, and EPA's emergency response air monitoring guidance tables. So they've put together some guidance tables that they just updated this last year that refer specifically to emergency responses and the action level that you should take.
Yeah, I might have missed it, but did you say the DTG employees were monitoring the air?
Yes.
On a daily basis?
Yes.
I'll tell you, there's a lack of trust by the neighbors in DTG. So how often are you testing it versus their testing it? I don't trust what they, I mean, hopefully they're doing a good job on that, but there's very little trust that they would much the data.
Understandable. We have not seen anything to show that they haven't been giving us the correct data. When we've been out there, we haven't seen anything that showed hazardous chemicals. If we did see that, we would do some more investigation into it. Next slide, please.
Do you have any idea what is burning underground? I mean, specific flammable gases that are burning, or is it solid material?
So at this time, we don't know exactly what's burning. DTG is a limited purpose landfill. So they're limited what they can take. They can't take municipal waste. So the garbage that you would throw in your garbage can cannot go to that landfill. It would be mainly construction and demolition debris. So tear down a house, that would be the type of material that could be in there.
Nobody's monitoring for that. Unless they're doing right now. That's been our convention all along.
For 3 years.
We don't know what's down.
So those are,
Excuse me, but been a remodeler here for 20 years, even before DTG came in. They go through your truck. They are particular. They're doing the best they can. You might disagree, but it's my truck that went in to dump remodeling waste from bathrooms and stuff, and they check what's in my truck. So you can have a degree of trust, and it's backed up with these guys. So I wouldn't be laying awake at night worrying about it. They're taking care of it.
so those could be
Really?
definitely we have some other concerns with that. As of right now, like we said, we want to focus on this evacuation response. I know there's concerns about what was dumped there in the past, prior incidents, stuff like that. I would like to take that up at a different, yes.
Yeah, well, and also once the fire's out, then the mod code process will begin again. And so that's when the investigation goes into effect and to find out what is in there and what's in there and the cause of the fire. So there'll be a lot more will be known once that fire gets out and they start the mod code process.
Going with this, like we said, we took samples from inside the landfill, the gas that was created in there. So we may not know exactly what was buried in there, but we do know what chemicals are being emitted through the emissions. So our focus is not so much, in this instance, is not so much, what is burning, but what can affect you. So through those laboratory samples, which delineated out all the different stuff that was being emitted, these are the 3 main chemicals of concern that could pose the greatest risk to public health. So with these, and these are the ones that we are sampling daily for right now. Every time we send off our laboratory samples, we're getting tested for, and will be continuing to be sampled during the remediation process. And if ecology comes in or another contractor comes in to do monitoring. So the first one, benzene. We all know benzene is in gases, mostly around petroleum products, petroleum-based products. But I wanted to show you here a couple of the health effects that you may have, symptoms you may have for benzene exposure. So there would be drowsiness, dizziness, rapid or irregular heartbeat, headaches, tremors, confusion, or unconsciousness. These are higher levels of benzene exposure. The action levels that we have are much lower than what would cause these. Going back to our action levels, they are based off of the AEGL1. So essentially, if you're not exposed to these chemicals at our action levels for longer than the time period established, there will be no long-term effects. The best thing to do is just to get to fresh air. The second one is hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide released out of here is most likely caused from drywall. Drywall has a lot of sulfides in it. When it's reacted with fire or decomposition and heat, releases hydrogen sulfide. That's a rotten egg smell. So if you smell rotten eggs, you're most likely smelling hydrogen sulfide. Eye irritation can have irritation to your respiratory system, convulsions, dizziness, headache, weakness, irritability, insomnia. The last main chemical of concern that we're looking at is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is released through incomplete combustion. So this fire is under there, it is burning, but it is not getting as much oxygen as it would like to have if it was open to the air. So we have incomplete combustion, which releases carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is not good for you. It's the same thing that comes out of your fuel exhaust. But with that, you can have fatigue, headaches, confusion, and dizziness. Slide, please. All right, so now Sam Hunt from Department of Ecology will talk about his air monitoring abilities.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Sam Hunt, Department of Ecology. The first thing I want to do is say, folks, if you haven't picked up one of these flyers yet at the front table, I would highly recommend doing that. I apologize, Home District, I did find a typo. Hydrogen sulfide and benzene, we want to move those back and forth on the top row here. But kind of reiterating what Andy said, you know, those are the things you want to watch out for. So I recommend that you do take that. So what is my role here? What is the role of my team? We respond to hazmat releases, we respond to oil spills. So what is our role in this situation? What we want to do is support the Yakima Health District. So as they work with you, the community, to say, hey, you know, we know that there are gases being generated at this facility. We know that we have hydrogen sulfide, we have benzene, we have carbon monoxide. How do we protect the community from those gases? Andy lined out the first piece, which is DTG being on site, doing those daily reports, doing that daily monitoring, and doing those checks around their facility to make sure that they're not picking up any hazardous levels. What happens if they do? Well, first, they have a consultant who's on call, and they're going to call them up to mobilize out, and they're going to take measurements on the property and around the community to get that real-time information to share with our response partners and with the community about what's happening. They may not be there right away. And that's where my team comes in. We're an intermediate in that sense. And what that means is I have meters that we can deploy both on site and in the community that can measure those gases, that carbon monoxide, the benzene, and the hydrogen sulfide. Now we'll use a combination strategy. And what that means is we have stationary meters that say if we know that we have hydrogen sulfide that's coming up in a plume from that cell that we've discussed already on the landfill, the wind is coming from the west, it's blowing east. Well, what we can do is we can deploy these stationary meters downwind to monitor what the concentrations are that are coming up off that plume. We can also go out into the community with portable meters. We can drive up and down the roads where you live, and we can spot check, and we can get real-time data to show what the community is being exposed to. And all that information is discoverable, it's shareable, and we're going to use that to, you know, help the health district make the decisions that they need to make, again, to protect the community. But we can also provide that information out via public disclosure requests and that whole process that, as public servants, we want to be as transparent as possible for you.
So just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
When you said you to help them and you're going to have monitoring available, is that only if it triggers into something that you have to get engaged, or is this monitoring going to happen just normal for processing?
That's an excellent question. So if let's take that another step. Say you're looking at this sheet, you're feeling some of these symptoms, you're smelling kind of a rotten egg smell, and you're thinking, I wonder if this is coming down the landfill. What do I do? Who should I call? Do we have a call number set up? And Tony, maybe that's something that you're going to be talking about, or does the health district have a hotline set up?
They do.
We have a call number, yes.
Perfect. So you can call that hotline number and say, hey, I'm smelling something that I think is coming from this landfill. Can somebody come out and take a reading? In coordination with the health district, my team can deploy, and we will get readings with our instruments, and we can show you what we're looking at right there on the spot. And we can compare that to the numbers that Andy's been researching with those AEGLs. Yes, we call them Eagles, and those are those community health guidelines. But again, we can get that real-time data, and we want to provide a service to the community. This is where I live. I want to make sure that my neighbors feel safe, and this is something that we would do for anybody in Washington State. But you know, I'm looking at this community right now, and I know you guys are concerned. And what I can say is that I'm here locally, and I have a team that can deploy out to this area and get this data real time. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. That's really what I got.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Good man.
I see you're not monitoring for methane. Is that because this is not a traditional landfill that you don't expect methane to produce?
That's a good question. So right now, what we're geared up to measure are the gases that the health district worked with DTG have identified. And again, just being specific, that's benzene, that's hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide. We do have meters that can measure for things like methane. And if that's a concern, we can come out, we can investigate those concerns. In fact, Wyatt, if you don't mind, come see me after the meeting, and we'll talk through that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, we.
You can sit back.
Oh, yes.
Evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Again, I'm Tony Miller, Emergency Management Director. So let's talk a little bit if something does happen. We're planning on nothing happening, but if it does, we get alert, the gas will start going up. We have some issues that are going to happen. Most everybody, I believe, is all signed up on the Alert Yakima. We probably received at least one message from those so far. As this happens, it'll happen fairly quickly since the health district notifies us. We already have those rings set up. So all we have to do is click the button and the message is going to go out. If you do get that message, there is a way to, it'll ask you to respond. Please respond, because that's how we track if everybody got the message. If you don't respond, that means we have to send somebody to the house. And depends on the circumstances, how safe it is for people to go in there. It's hard to say. So we want to make sure everybody can respond. If you do have an issue trying to get out, get a hold of us. Worst case scenario, call 911, say, you know, I've been advised to evacuate, but XYZ, this is the problem I have. We will accommodate and help out. If you haven't, make sure you're set up in Alert Yakima for text messages, emails, voicemails. It will do all of those. So we really want to make sure you have those. As we said earlier, we have it set up for this system, but we also have other things that happen in the county that we want people to have on Alert Yakima for. Different events happen, our wildland fires, our flooding. You could be in the area where there's an ammonia leak. If you're signed up for Alert Yakima and we do that geofence, it's going to alert you, hey, there's ammonia leak there, you have to leave the area. So Alert Yakima is very important to have. So if you do get the alert, what do? We want you to be out of the area as soon as possible. So what do you need to take? Important paperwork, medications, anything like that, clothes. What we suggest a lot of people, right now we got wildfire season going, having a go bag, a couple days worth of clothes in it. Keep your medications where you know you can get them and go quickly without any delay. The other thing is, if you have pets, we will make sure those are accommodated also. The other thing we have talked about is people out there have horses, cows, anything like that. My office does have a livestock evacuation team that will come in and get those animals. And we have a agreement with the fairgrounds to put any livestock there. Yes.
Would that cost be covered by DTG as well?
Yeah. There will be no cost for that. It's all volunteer. We have lots of stuff that's already covered for our teams. So if you do have livestock or you know people that do buy you, please have them get a hold of us so we can note that address has livestock. So we know, okay, we got livestock, this address, I know I can send my team.
How do we, or who do we talk?
Just call my office, 574-1903. Pam is my assistant, and just let her know you're part of the around DTG and we have livestock and just the count so I know how many team members. I have 15 livestock truck and trailers. So if we need more, we can get more, but just so I know what to bring out and what we're expecting to put at the fairgrounds, because they have to set up for us also. But yeah, if you have any issues during this, we're hoping we don't ever have to do it, but if we have to, we want to be ready. So, and if anything changes in your Alert Yakima, make sure you go in there and change your phone numbers, anything like that. Any questions? All right.
Thank you, Tony. Like Tony said, this is not an imminent situation. We don't expect that this will happen, but we definitely want to be prepared for it. We want to be prepared as regulatory agencies. We want you as the public to be prepared. Try to get all the questions out of the way ahead of time so there's not confusion or delay. And in the event that something does happen. So how do you get more information? So we have public meetings. This is great. We can't have them daily. Information can change. For routine updates, you can visit the Yakima Health District's webpage. We've got a page specifically for DTG. So any updates that are not emergency updates will be on there. We'll keep you up to date as much stuff as we can. Also, if you have other questions, you may leave this meeting later on and you've got a question, feel free to give the health district a call. If you think it's more directed toward emergency management, give them a call. But if you call the wrong place, we'll direct you to the right area. But yeah, questions may arise, may have neighbors that weren't able to get here. Somebody who wasn't able to ask a question because they're watching online. But feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, we really encourage everybody to sign up for Alert Yakima, not just for this specific event, but for any event that happens in Yakima. It's a good system, gets you real-time information, gets you emergency notifications. If you're out somewhere away from your house, all you got is your cell phone, and something's going on near you, you'll get that information so that you can make the best decision for you and your family. All right, that is the end of our presentation today. Do we have any questions? Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank you for all your work on this issue. The neighbors really appreciate that. My concern is, I am concerned for fire and the potential for gases, but I'm real concerned for water. If you have this stuff, we don't know what's in there, whatever is in there, if the fire is cooking it, and if this gets into the water system, not only is it going to affect our long term, but our property values are exposed to that. Is there any part of this fire plan that deals with water concerns?
So this fire plan specifically does not deal with it, but we are developing. We've got a pretty good system in place. We're investigating more to put more water, to put more wells in, monitoring wells to investigate any water quality concerns.
Yeah, and there's been conversations with fire chiefs, and so we know that we don't want to put water on the landfill unless that's the last resort. And so that's part of in the conversation that we've had is okay, we're gonna push the dirt first, try to suffocate it, and then only if we need to, we would go to that well, put water on.
So
is
there an approved plan?
Yeah, so I was just going to talk about that. So there is an approved plan that's been vetted through Department of Ecology, through our office, through fire chiefs. We wanted to wait till this meeting to put on our website in case we need to change anything, if we get anything from you. So tomorrow morning it will be on.
Is it the fact that once you do this, whatever you put on this soil layer, will that in effect, how long will it take for the fire to go out? Do you have some historical understanding of what happens when?
So
what is the risk? How long is this risk of fire going to last?
So once you put the soil cover on, it will take a long time for the heat to dissipate, for the fire to be completely smothered. It is an underground subsurface landfill fire. Once you put the soil cover on, it's going to insulate it quite a bit, so it's going to hold that heat for a long time. We're going to do continuous monitoring for quite a while to see if it's an effective way to get the fire out. But once you get the dirt on, it minimizes the risk of this fire coming to the surface, and it also stops a lot of the gas emissions from getting released.
Are there other examples of how long this usually lasts? How long? I mean, there must be other situations in other places that can give us an idea how long this might take.
So there's,
I was just going to say, so DTG's landfill fire consultant has worked on, I think he said, around 50 plus landfill fires across the world. And so he's very experienced with this. There isn't specific case studies that we've looked deeply into as of now, because he has advised us that it will take a long time. And so in ruling out, okay, we're going to have this done by a month, we're just going to, figure out how long is it going to take by continuously monitoring it. And he said himself, it could take months, and we don't know.
So not
sure.
Years.
We don't know for sure.
So there isn't really good data on that.
There's not.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's so many different variables, depending on what's burning, the extent of how much is burning. So with those variables, it can range quite a large range.
I think one of the issues that we raised early on is, and ecology shared the concern, was if you do try to smother the odors and the fire, what you're really doing is also driving those gases into the subsurface because there's no liner here. So with it being right on top of neighboring property, we've already seen what appears to be heat migration from the landfill on neighbor property in the winter. And so I think the concern that Mark is saying is, let's say we are able to kind of smother this and knock it down. That's going to maybe increase the risk to groundwater contamination. I think that's what we're feeling because there's no protections there and the investigation is going to go on. The landfill fire is going to continue to drive, liquids, I would argue, into the ground. So there's not an easy solution here, I get it, but the risk to groundwater seems to be more significant by the method that we're choosing a little bit. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to choose that method. I'm just saying, I think that's probably something to acknowledge and then look to correct or to address going forward. The monitoring wells, the number of wells and the location of those wells is significant. So I'm anxious to see what they come up with because as I understand it now, there's only 5 wells that have been drilled. 3 are in water, 2 are not. Is there more than that or is that still where we're at?
You said 3, there's 3.
3 in water, 2 dry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we still have that groundwater monitoring project planned, and I heard today in the meeting that they have gotten a contract with a well driller. We don't know the extent of that contract yet, but there will be 5 more monitoring wells installed at some point in the future, so that we can do some more groundwater monitoring, up gradient from the neighbors and down gradient from the landfill as well. And then again, like it was mentioned with the Department of Ecology, when this fire is out, and I don't know what their threshold is of when they would like to do more investigation, they will do more investigation, and DTG has been made aware that they will be installing groundwater monitoring wells to investigate and make sure that there's no contamination before they just declare it, no further action.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, Karen.
I watched this whole landfill being built. I had bird's eye view in my property. I saw how steep it was. They did not pack it very well because it was too steep. And they did not do layering of dirt. They brought in all kinds of demolition and I could see why there's a fire with all the air holes because they could not pack. I mean, I really thought that machine was going to go over.
So a lot of what we, as much as we know and kind of as little as we know, what we can attribute to this is whether that's been in the past or current is management practice. And so if you have a lot of covered waste, if you don't have a good cover on there, if you're not doing intermediate cover, those kinds of things really help keep the list individualized and also not receiving any air intrusion to fuel the heat generation from decomposition in there.
That was DTG that I saw. 2009.
So it hasn't been confirmed by us, but
yeah,
it's at the site. So
I probably saw more than anybody.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So it brings up a point. Yeah, we have the mess we're dealing with now. Is there any part of this plan dealing with prevention of future fires in the other cells that they're working on?
So in their next cell that they will be disposing of, they will have a liner first off. And with that, they'll have to do a permit modification. And so with that also comes resubmitting, updating operations plans. They're gonna have to monitor leachate because they have aligners, things like these that we'll have to vet their newly approved plans, and we'll be looking for things like that.
No, they are taking it, they're dumping now. They will be taking all of that out and putting it in a cell with a liner.
Yes.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
What alternative methods of fire suppression would you look at?
So there's multiple, well, not multiple, but the first one is soil cover, which we were planning on doing based on their consultant and our consultant. That's the safest one, most widely used around the world. right now for suppression of a fire. The next one would be a complete overhaul of the waste mass. So essentially digging into bringing out the burning material, putting it out. Couple things with that. One, this is not a lined facility like we have talked about. So using any water to put it out, we wouldn't recommend because we have the groundwater concerns. In that, there will be emissions release. So if they dig into the mass, it's going to open up, going to bring oxygen to the fire. It's going to release those gases. So 100% there's going to be emissions release and a much higher chance that it's going to affect the public and the neighbors around it.
So two methods.
There's a few other, but we went off the recommendations between their landfill fire consultant and our landfill fire consultant, and these are the most widely used ones out there.
So DTG has experience dealing with these fires then?
Their landfill fire consultant who they hired. He's not local, but like Stephen had said, he's worked landfill fires all across the world. Can't remember the different places, multiple in this country, and I think Panama was one of them, Bahamas, different places. So he has a lot of experience with it, and so is our landfill fire consultant, who is also not local.
And felt very important that any information that we're receiving from DTG or the landfill consultant, we were vetting it with our own landfill consultant to make sure that he agreed with any information that we received.
Any other questions?
Okay,
Thank you.
well, we will conclude this meeting. And again, the recording will be made available on our YouTube and our Facebook. And for any other routine updates or frequently asked questions, and all these resources on the flyers we'll have on our website at yakimahealthdistrict.org. Thank you.